Hi there, and welcome back to Retirement in Real Time. Retirement is scary. By that, I don't necessarily mean that being retired is scary. I'm only 20 days into it, so what do I know? But when we were doing our planning for retirement, when we were looking down the road 6 months or a year, there were scary aspects to that. We were, where are you? How much money are we going to have in retirement? Where is it going to come from? What are going to be, my sources of income? What about my friends at work? What's going to happen to those? What about, working on a reliable schedule? There's a lot of comfort to knowing what you're going to be doing every day, even if it's not a job you really enjoy. But when you make that huge change of retirement and you're not sure what you're going to be doing every day, there can be a little bit of stress associated with that. At least, there kind of was for me. I've been working for 30 years and been doing a lot of the same things. And suddenly changing to where I don't have to go there and do those, there's a little bit of stress associated with that. But first, Retirement in Real Time is a channel where get to follow me in real time as I do updates as needed, not daily, but at least twice weekly, and then as needed, um, about my journey through my retirement from a federal job. So certain aspects of this will be related to what I am. I'm a former federal employee, so I can't help but describe that. But parts of it will be about retirement in general, especially the things about money and budget and the things that we do every day. So I hope that you'll follow along. Please like and subscribe. You know the drill. You've heard it on all the channels. But especially if you're getting something out of this. And as I move along, I'm hopeful that there will be a lot of great information for you. Okay, so this episode here, retirement is scary. Um, what did we do to help allay some of those fears, help decrease some of that stress as we were getting closer and closer to retirement? Well, the first thing is research, because the old saying says knowledge is power, and having that power can decrease your stress. Mostly, as you do research, sometimes you'll find the whole gamut of experiences that other people have had. So, you'll find that person that said, I retired and within 60 days I had my pension and I had my TSP coming in and I got Social Security and everything is great, hunky dory. I'm having a great time. And that's fantastic. I hope that for everyone. But you don't have to do much research before you find the very opposite end of that spectrum. Just this morning, I was reading a story on Reddit from a person who retired at the very beginning of 2024, and was 6 months in, still hadn't received anything. Had gotten like one payment of $135 or something like that, and hadn't gotten anything else, and was now having difficulty with car payments and with a house payment and putting food on the table. And then there had been a medical issue, and this person was really in dire straits and reaching out to the Reddit community trying to find some assistance. So, sometimes that can bring on some additional stress, but that's one reason why I've talked about on here. Even though the quick guide will tell you that it takes 3 to 5 months, I would suggest that you plan for at least 6 months without that pension check, and perhaps without more than that. Be prepared to go 6 months without a paycheck at all. And if you do that, that will help. So when do you start getting that knowledge? When do you start that research? Well, I would tell you now. I don't care if you're planning on retiring in 2025, if you're 5 years out or 10 years out, if you're a new employee, because early on, it's mostly financial. You're not so much worried about what are you going to do day to day when you retire. You're mostly worried about how much money are you going to have? How do you save enough? And so get started as early as you can doing research, finding people who can help you with your finances. It is never too early, but it can be too late if you wait till that last minute and you don't have the funds. So get ready for that. Start now with your research. It will help you. So the other thing that we did was we made sure, as I mentioned before, that we had about 6 months worth of expenses in the bank, essentially in cash ready to go. That is a real practical thing to do because, cash is king. You can use it for any kind of expense that you need, everything from paying your mortgage or your rent to your car payments to buying food. It doesn't matter. So we haven't always had 6 months of expenses in the bank, though. A year ago, we had 3 months. So when we decided about a year ago that the end of 2024 was going to be when I retired, we put a huge emphasis on saving up that 6 months because we had done the research and we knew that 6 months was kind of the minimum that you needed. It helped that here we got a big pay raise at the beginning of last year, and we took the majority of that pay raise and funneled it into our savings account. We also took our tax refund from last year and put as much of that as we could into savings as well, so that we could build up to that 6 months of savings in the bank. Before that, we had about 3 months. We had 3 months of expenses in there for a couple of years. And it took us a couple of years before that to build up to 3 months of expenses. Prior to that, we just had that, emergency fund that we tried to keep a couple of $1,000s in the bank to where, if we had an emergency car repair or the water pipe burst or anything like that, we tried to have at least a couple $1,000s on hand. But that was the days where we didn't have quite as much money, and couldn't afford it. So as we could afford it, as we got pay raises, started moving more and more money into that savings account. And then the other thing, if you watched my previous video, we did get my annual leave payout. That was a lump sum payment for my annual leave that I had accrued. And that gives us a couple more months of expenses. But the critical thing, in our case, we don't want to spend that. We are really trying to save that money to use as a down payment on a new vehicle, probably next year, maybe in 2027, if we can stretch the one I have out. But we want to, and once we get settled in our retirement pay scheme and know how much money we're going to be making, we'll try to put more money into that if we can. So we're going to try not to touch that. But that does give us some more months of expenses should we really, really need it. So, and one critical thing that you can do, especially starting 5 to 10 years out from retirement, is get your debt paid down. They will tell you that the closest to zero debt you can have is best. In our case, we still have a mortgage, and we'll have that mortgage for another, 12 to 15 years. We're trying to pay early on. We pay over, trying to pay down early. So, yes, I could work another 12 to 15 years, but I really don't want to work that. I'm 63 years old, and I don't want to work until I'm almost 75. But we are debt free in terms of our credit card and automobile debt. And that helps. It helps huge. So pay off your credit card debt if you really want to be prepared for retirement, and pay off your house if you can. Another thing we did to help prepare for retirement, help reduce our stress, was we, throughout 2024, we began tracking our expenses. We paid closest attention to January through June, those first, magical 6 months, so that we had a pretty good estimate of what January through June expenses this year would look like. And that gave us an idea of how to plan for those. We also included intermittent expenses, but ones that you do have, things like car insurance, that come up and you have to pay them. We also looked at gifts that are necessary. Well, I guess they aren't necessary, but things like birthday gifts that we knew we'd have during the first 6 months of the year. The ones for January and February, we purchased in like September, October, November, when I was still working and there was more money on hand to buy those. So bought those early. For the gifts that fall a little bit later this year, we made sure that we were accumulating our credit card points. Now, we do pay our credit cards off at the end of every month. For those of you who might be concerned that we're carrying credit card debt, we're not. We pay that off at the end of every month, but we do use credit cards in part because we get those points. We get 5% cash back. And if we save that, it essentially lets us buy some of our gifts for free. They're not for free, but we're not going to have to pull money out of our savings to do it. We have that money accumulated in there. So many times we found, especially if there were bonus monies to be had through Amazon, we would make sure we save those. And now when we have birthdays coming up in March, April, May, we can use those bonus monies to pay for those. So that's something else that you can do and look at, but it is definitely something that we're doing. The next thing is a bit of a balancing act. It's a little bit controversial because, and you'll see why here in just a second, but we started building up our pantry, building up not just food supplies, but our household goods, things like detergent and deodorant and toothpaste, things like that. Now, and it's a balancing act because we were simultaneously trying to save money to build up 6 months worth of expenses, but we were spending more money than we might normally because we were trying to build up 6 months worth of non-perishable food supplies. So it is a bit of a balancing act. Now, did we have to do that? Could we have just saved the money to buy the items later on in the year? Yes, we could. And you might choose to do that. It's just not the route that we chose. Because in our case, it was more stress reduction. Because if you don't have any food saved in the house, and and the way we were looking at it is every time we go to buy groceries, we would see our savings account decline. And you'd see it quick, and you'd see it regularly, and that would bring additional stress because we don't know how long those monies have to last. That's that disadvantage. Having a government job is a great thing. You get a pension, but man, that in those initial months of retirement can really be stressful because we don't know when we're going to be getting that pension. And so that's why we're choosing to build up. And I'm going to do a video specifically about our pantry and some of the specific things that we did and where we saved money, where you can save money. But some of the things we did was we started writing dates on deodorant containers and toothpaste and detergent throughout 2024. So we got an idea of how long each one would last us so that we knew how many to buy for those first 6 months or so of this year. Because, do you offhand know how many days or weeks a thing of deodorant lasts you? If you do, good on you. I didn't. So we started writing those dates down and getting an idea, and that helped out a lot. So those are the things that we did, and there's probably more, and if I think of them, I'll do another video. But those are the things that we did to help reduce our fear of retirement planning. One of the things we noticed as we were doing that research was how many people commented on how unprepared they felt. Not all of them actually were, some were, but a lot of people felt unprepared for retirement. They once they got there and they stepped over that threshold into retirement, they felt unprepared. And we haven't had that feeling so far. We did all of our research, got as much knowledge as we could. We have a nice buffer in the bank. We have a pantry full of food. We know how long it's going to last us. And so that gives us a lot of comfort and reduces a lot of stress for us. But there are other things that cause stress. We'll talk about those as time goes on. But once again, I'm Howard. This is Retirement in Real Time. Thanks for watching.